Welcome to yet another edition of the Stats and Stacks podcast. For today, we're going over UFC Vegas 54, Blachowicz versus Rakic. First thing first, as always, a really quick review of last week's card. We crushed it, went 5 of 6 on picks. Only one missing is the beatdown that Justin Gaethje got. Jesus Christ, Oliveira. That dude is a bad man. That I will never bet against Charles Oliveira again. I learned my lesson. I don't care if it's Islam. I don't care if it's Volkanovski. I don't care if it's Holloway. I don't care who that Beneil. God, I don't know. I'm not betting anyone against Charles Oliveira. Learned my lesson. But this week, not exactly a stellar card. And a small offering, only 11 fights here, and that's including one that got postponed and pushed onto this card. So actually 2 of them, even the main event was supposed to be the main event at UFC Columbus. So kind of a lackluster card, but that usually happens the card after a pay-per-view. So again, make sure you give this video a like, make sure you give it a follow. Hit that subscribe button, follow us over on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, doing the damn thing. We're building the brand and making money along the way. And again, not going to waste a lot of your time. A small card here won't take a lot of time to give it a listen. So let's go ahead and jump into the very first fight of the night. First fight of the night here, we have Andre Petrowski at plus 300 going up against Nick Maximoff at minus 400. Over under set at 2.5. Over 2.5 is minus 155. Under 2.5 plus 125. Let's start with Nick Maximoff. Kind of weird going from the co-main event to the curtain jerker, the very first fight of the night, but hey, it is what it is. All in all, he's a pretty decent wrestler. I know he has a wrestling background at like a junior college. His striking, I don't know about. I've never seen it. I have not the slightest clue. This dude wants to take you down, and he wants to. You see Nate Diaz there in the picture with him. He does train over at the Diaz Academy, and that's what he wants to do. He just wants to take you down and tap you out or control you. And he's more of a position over submission guy. So he's not just gonna go give up position just to go for something. You look at his wins here, and a lot of just safe stuff, ground and pound. Rear naked chokes, things that aren't really gonna get him in any sort of trouble. All in all, nothing bad to say about him. He did slow down in his debut against Cody Brundage, and that was a pretty wrestling heavy fight. But then his next fight against Puna Soriano, he came out and wrestled even more, and his cardio looked fine. So I know that was a little bit of a shorter notice for Nick, so that might have been part of the issue. Again, he's only 24 years old. So he is growing. Each time you see him, he seems to get better. His cons, he does have really low volume and bad striking because we just haven't seen it. But he does have 100% takedown defenses, which is going to be really clutch against Andre Petrowski, because Andre is basically a carbon copy of Nick, only he's a little older. He hits a little harder, is a little bit better striking, technically has a higher wrestling pedigree, but the cardio, I would say in all honesty, Andre's striking is better. I would say when it comes to wrestling, it's pretty much a wash, and the ground game is pretty much a wash. So seeing Andre at plus 300 didn't pique my interest momentarily, and then it's just, man, this guy is bad cardio. We saw it in the Ultimate Fighter against Brian Battle. He looked great round 1, came out, just gassed out and got finished. He looked great against Michael Gilmore, because Michael Gilmore can't wrestle. And even in the 3rd round, when he got the finish, he had mentioned it himself, how everyone thinks he gasses out. He was able to get the finish, but he was definitely slowing down. And then he fought Yazang, who is 3-3 and cut from the promotion. He's probably the worst fighter on the roster. And it took him to the 3rd round to get him out of there, just barely at the end there. So again, it's good that he went to the 3rd round, his last 2 fights. That's really big. But at the same time, he's such a slow, methodical guy. It's like he's going in slow motion, and he has a big wrestling advantage over these guys. So if he needs to, he takes you down to that he can breathe and just holds you there and tries to catch his breath. He's not going to be able to do that against Max. I think this is going to look a lot like the Cody Brundage versus Max win fight. Only difference is Andre's not as good on the feet as Cody Brundage, and he may not even be as good of a wrestler. So if Max was able to out wrestle him, he should be able to out wrestle Andre. And even if he can't, this is a live betting opportunity, because even if Andre wins the first round, second and third round, Max definitely has the advantage. And honestly, I keep calling him Max. His name is Nick Maximoff. I know he's at the Diaz Academy, but Cody at the Dogger Pass podcast made a really, really good point. Jake Shields is the one that hypes this guy up. And if you remember how boring Jake Shields was in MMA and the UFC, that's exactly how Nick fights. And Jake Shields never had stand-up. He never did. All he had was wrestling, and he never really got a lot of submissions. He would just control you on the ground. That's his buddy. That's his teacher, and that's exactly how he fights. Jake Shields got all the way to a title shot against GSP, so that's what Nick's looking to do. So the pick is going to be Nick. I hate him at these odds, but Andre has no cardio. You got to take the guy with cardio. All right. But the next fight of the night is one I'm looking at as a possible dog opportunity. We have Carlos Candelario at 8-1 going up against Tatsuro Taira. I don't have the notes in front of me because I'm going to go through this real quickly, because this was one that was scheduled about 2 or 3 weeks ago. We'll start with Carlos. He was the guy from the Contender Series that lost a very controversial split decision. And Dana said, there's no way that guy lost that fight, and gave him a contract anyway. All in all, he has a boxing background, and his hands are pretty nice. He's predominantly just a boxer, not a lot of kicks or anything in his fights. He does have good offensive wrestling, but his defensive wrestling can be a little suspect at times. And he has a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, so he's going to be very, very hard to finish if you are to take him down. Again, he fought someone that was very, very well versed on the ground, and he did get taken down like 6 or 7 times against Ronaldo Candido. On his first stint in the Contender Series. However, he did still get the win, because he was not, essentially Ronaldo could not tap him out because his defense was solid, and he was able to get back up. Yeah, if he got taken down 7 times, he also got up a ton, so he was able to pop back up and ultimately win the fight. All in all, not a lot of good, not a lot of bad about him. It's a Dana White Contender Series guy coming in, making his debut. 30 years old, he's a grown man. And that's the difference here between him and Tatsuro Taira. Tatsuro is the new hotness. He's a 22-year-old kid from Japan coming in. He's undefeated. And again, we mentioned Carlos, that split decision. No one had it going to Victor Aldo-Moreno. Everyone thought that Carlos won. So technically, you could be looking at 9-0 versus 10-0. Difference being he fought in the Contender Series. He fought a few guys. Tatsuro has been fighting on the Japanese regional scene. He has really, really good ground game. He has a very good ground game. His wrestling looks okay. It's not the greatest. It's just kind of there. A lot of body lock takedowns against lower level competition and smaller guys. These guys he's fighting are, I understand we're at 125, but if they had a division lower in Japan, that's where these guys would be fighting. They would not be fighting at flyweight. Like he kind of had some cupcake matchups. Again, much to his avail. I mean, he's only 22 years old. You want to throw him in there against a killer, but he's had some cupcake matchups. His striking is kind of non-existent. He hits very hard, but his striking is very, very slow, methodical, and rudimentary. He has a jab. Sorry, he has a big overhand right, and he has a leg kick, and that is it. That's literally all he has. He'll throw a leg kick or a huge overhand right. The dude packs some power, but he only has 2 weapons on the feet. So Carlos will definitely have the advantage on the feet. On the ground, I want to say it's a wash. Tatsuro is very good. It depends on who's on top there. And then when it comes to the wrestling, I want to say it's a wash. Both are kind of unproven in that department, so I don't really know where to go there. So the odds are the reason I was going to go with Carlos originally. I was pretty confident that that was a very, very good value play, but he pulled out of the last fight. He was the one that had the medical concerns, and he was the one that weighed in last on the scales that week. Granted, he made weight, but he didn't look the greatest, and then he pulled out of the fight due to illness, and I feel like it was weight cutting related. So here he is making the weight again a few weeks later. I'm not the biggest fan of that. Now it's just kind of a stay away. I cannot in good faith bet a 22-year-old making his debut in America against a 30-year-old man. So if I had to bet one, it would still be Carlos. And that's probably who I'd pick, but I'm just staying away from this fight. And honestly, it's not worth it. Just stay away and enjoy and see who's real and who's not. Okay, next fight of the night is another possible dog play with Angela Hill plus 145 going up against Verna Jandiroba minus 165. Over under set at 2.5. Over 2.5 minus 255. Under 2.5 plus 190. We're not going to touch the over under because the over under kind of dictates who wins this fight. The reason being Verna Jandiroba. I love Verna for absolutely no reason. I love the fact that she came out the island boy. I like her crazy hair. She just cracks me up. The knee pad she's been wearing, like she's just a very, very goofy, fun person. She's kind of growing on me in all honesty. She's fought killers, man. I mean, you look at her UFC tenure. He's fought Amanda Ribas, who's a killer, Mackenzie Dern, Kanako Murata isn't really, and she finished her, which is nice. Felice Herrig isn't a killer, but she finished her. Mallory Martin is just okay. She finished her. Carla Esparza is the current champ. So that's a pretty interesting amount of people to fight there. Where'd she fight? Mackenzie Dern was the other one. Sorry, Mackenzie Dern is on the brink of fighting for a title as well. So she's fought challengers and then she's fought some decent ones. And all of the ones where she was supposed to win, she did. And she came out and she finished them. All the ones that were really our former champions or future title contenders, she came out and she lost close decisions. So Verna's very good. Her striking is getting better. It looks better every single time, but it's still not the greatest. Very goofy, wild. She hits kind of hard, but not a lot of technique. Her wrestling's okay. It's underrated. She shows a 40% takedown accuracy, but she's not going for a lot of takedowns against Mackenzie Dern. And she took Carla Esparza down 3 times. That's impressive. Mallory Martin, she only needed 1. Felice Herrig, she only needed 1. And it's like some of these girls, Murata is a very, very good wrestler. That's all she does. So she wasn't in a lot of wrestling heavy matchups, and the ones where she could take advantage of it, she did. So her 40% accuracy is actually a lot better than the number shows. So she's a decent wrestler, but her bread and butter is jiu-jitsu. I think between her and Mackenzie Dern, they are the 2 best on the ground. That she is a jiu-jitsu ace. She's very, very good on the ground. So all in all, she's good, very decent wrestler, great ground game, improving striking, but very low volume. She does get hit more than she dishes out. Again, her striking is improving and still not the greatest. And she does slow down a touch. I wouldn't say she gasses, but she does not look the same in round 3 than she did in round 1 or 2. On the flip side, Angela Hill does look exactly the same all 3 rounds. Her striking is phenomenal, just 0 power. Don't get me wrong, she's probably never going to knock anyone out, but she's very, very technical on the feet, probably one of the best strikers in the division. Her 13-11 record does not do her justice. I talked about Verna fighting killers. I mean, Angela Hill has fought Amanda Lemos, Tisha Torres, Michelle Waterson, Claudia Gadelia, Ashley Yoder, Luma Lapume. She fought Ariana Carnelosi, Yan Janan, Courtney Casey, Rhonda Marcos. She's been in here forever. We can keep going and going and going. Jessica Andrade. She's fought a lot of former champs. Rose, Tisha again. Like, she has fought a lot of Carla in the Ultimate Fighter. Like, she has fought the who's who. So don't let this 13-11 fool you. And she's fought nothing but the best girls in the division that the division has to offer. Again, her striking, phenomenal. Will kill Verna on the feet. Durability, you can't knock this girl out. If Amanda Lemos hit her clean with some shots in round 1 and couldn't put her out, I don't think she'll ever go out. Her cardio, impeccable. She looks exactly the same in round 3 than in round 1. The issues are, and she has really, really high volume. And then we mentioned Verna has low volume, so she will definitely outland her on the feet. The issues are the fact that she's 37 and she is pretty bad. She has a pretty bad ground game. I mean, she got tapped out by Randa Marcos. Who else has she been tapped out by? Carla Esparza. God, she has a lot of split decision losses, like a ton. Rose choked her out. So if you have any semblance of a jiu-jitsu game, you can submit her. And like we mentioned, Verna has a very, very, very good submission game and decent wrestling. Now, Angela does have a 78% takedown defense, and that number is actually better than it looks too, because she was at like 50 something. She mentioned how bad her takedown defense was. She's been training it, drilling it, and drilling it. And we saw her go from a 50% takedown defense to a 78. So that means a lot of people are shooting because they don't want to stand with her. And she's stuffing most of them. Now, can you chain grapple and get her down eventually? Yeah, Tisha Torres just took her down their last fight. Ashley Yoder took her down twice in their fight. Michelle Watterson, I think, took her down once. Claudia took her down once or twice. I think Luma took her down. So you can still take her down. The 78% is nice. She will stuff a ton of them. But if you shoot enough, you will be able to get her to the ground. So that's why I don't want to touch this over under, because Verna will probably get her down to the ground at one point, because Angela has no stopping power. She's not going to finish Verna. So it comes down to, can she survive on the ground? That is a tricky question. I want to say no and just keep backing my girl Verna, but the discrepancy on the feet is so big, and the cardio definitely goes towards Angela. And I will always favor cardio as the best weapon in MMA. So the pick is going to be Angela. The bet, unfortunately, would have to be Angela. I love Verna, but you got to bet with your brain, not your heart. Next fight of the night is one that takes brain, not your heart, to the fullest. We have Elon Patrick at plus 115 going up against Michael Johnson minus 135. I'm pretty sure the line is growing. Again, I get most of my lines on Monday, the week of. And I think Michael Johnson was like minus 165 the last time I checked. Over under set at 2.5, over 2.5 minus 170, under 2.5 plus 140. I like that. I like that a lot. That's probably getting steamed as well. I like that because of Michael Johnson. We talked about Angela Hill having the best 13-11 record you ever seen. Like, don't let the record fool you. Michael Johnson at 19-17 is absurd to me. This dude is so good, so full of potential, yet so fucking frustrating. This is the most frustrating man in MMA. I've never seen anything like it at all. We should have saw it coming from the start. I mean, he was the #1 seed in the Ultimate Fighter, and he lost to Jonathan Brookins in the finale because he choked. This is a man that has 35 years old. This is a man who Kamaru Usman said is the hardest hitter he's ever gone up against. Like, they trained together. They didn't fight in an actual fight. But he said Michael Johnson hits the hardest. He said that Michael Johnson has put him out in practice before. Michael Johnson is good striking. His wrestling, a little suspect. It's not terrible. He has like 65% takedown defense, but he can pop back up. His jiu-jitsu isn't the greatest, but it's serviceable. Again, he's 35. He's been in the game a while. You're not going to take him down and hold him down and tap him out or anything like that. He's familiar with what's going on. His cardio's okay. It's not good. It's not bad. It's just normalized. I'm sorry, he has a 77% takedown defense, so it's actually a little better than I thought it was. And he trains, like I said, at Sanford MMA. He's at a good camp. So he's good striking. His wrestling's decent, and his jiu-jitsu, it's not like he goes out there and never gets tapped out. I don't even know the last time he's been submitted. The issue is this dude is the definition of an apple pie shitter. This man has knockout wins over Dustin Poirier. He's beaten Andre Fili. He beat the absolute shit out of Edson Barbosa. He has wins over Joe Lozon, last call. He has wins over Tony Ferguson. So this is a man that has wins over Tony Ferguson and knocked out. He has wins over Tony Ferguson, Edson Barbosa, knocked out Dustin Poirier. But at the same time, he has losses to Reza Madadi. Don't even know who that is. Benil, that's fine. That's a pass. Nate Diaz, that's fine. Habib, that's fine. Justin Gaethje, he came out here and killed Justin Gaethje in round 1, but then came out and got knocked out in round 2. Is a loss to Darren Elkins. And Darren Elkins tapped him out. He just straight up quit. He beat the absolute shit out of Josh Emmett and then allowed him to come back and knock him out with under a minute left in the fight after dominating for 13 minutes. Thiago Moises, he came out in 10-8. They almost stopped the fight twice in the first round, immediately came out and got submitted in 20 seconds in the second round. And then last fight was so concerned about Clay Guida's wrestling, allowed him to get outstruck by Clay Guida for 15 minutes. So how do you go from knocking out Dustin Poirier, rocking Justin Gaethje, destroying Edson Barbosa, and putting a class on against Tony Ferguson, to losing to Stevie Ray, getting outstruck by Clay Guida, and getting just put the fuck out by Josh Emmett and tapped out by Darren Elkins? Makes no sense. This man could be champion and he could be cut. You don't know what version of Michael Johnson you're getting. He's the most frustrating man in MMA to bet, bar none, guaranteed, because you never know what's going to happen. On the flip side, you have Elon Patrick. You know exactly what's going to happen. I talk about 19-17, and he's a lot better than that. 15-13, Patrick is a lot worse than that. This dude sucks. This dude has fought cans, and he destroys the cans, but he has fought okay competition and has been getting exposed. Yes, he can beat Stevie Ray, Demir Hazovic. He can out wrestle John Medeski and Damian Brown. He comes out and he has decent jiu-jitsu. His wrestling's okay, but when it comes to striking, he's extremely hittable. He's very, very low volume, and he has no cardio, partially because he's 38 years old now. So all he can do is wrestle and try to tap you out. It can work against the lower competition. It is not going to work against the Scott Holtzmans or the Bobby Greens or Mason Jones of the world. And that Mason Jones fight, he was getting his shit rocked. He was about to quit, and then he got poked in the eye and said he could not continue. It was not that bad of an eye poke. Again, I'm not in there, but he was looking for a way out prior to. And the moment he had an eye poke, he was like, no, I'm done, and just laid on the floor. He quit. And I will never, ever, ever bet on a quitter. So I have the most unreliable guy going up against a quitter. God, again, the biggest weapon in MMA is cardio. Patrick has 0. So I am unfortunately forced to bet Michael Johnson. I'm going to pick him for sure. Will I have Michael Johnson in parlays? No, I just can't do it. He finds ways to lose this, whether it's getting outstruck by wrestlers, whether it's getting tapped out after killing someone, or getting knocked out after beating someone for 13 minutes. I can't physically put him in parlays and have all the other work go down. So I would bet him straight up if you're going to, and God bless if you're going to, because that dude will fuck your day up. Next fight of the night, we have a straight pick'em here. Viviana Araujo -115, Andrea Lee -115. Over under set at 2.5. Over 2.5 -300. Under 2.5 +220. Let's start with Viviana. She's good, man. She's actually sneaky good. Wrestling, not a lot of people talk about, but she's a pretty decent wrestler. Striking, phenomenal. A lot of in and out movement, real light on her feet, bouncy, pretty decent volume. She does get hit more than she dishes out, but that's mainly because of round 2 and 3. Again, she looks like an absolute killer, might be one of the best fighters in the division in round 1. Then things seem to take a turn for the worse. She's 35 years old, and her cardio just is not where it needs to be. She has a solid round. She looks okay, but a little sketchy in round 2, and she is holding on for dear life in round 3. So it always comes down to she's going to win the first. She's always going to lose the third, and it always comes down to who wins round 2. When it comes to her opponent here in Andrea Lee, she too has pretty decent volume. She will have a 2-inch reach advantage here, which is nice. Her striking is also pretty good. Her jiu-jitsu is okay. I think Vivian is a black belt as well, so their jiu-jitsu is kind of a wash. Wrestling, definitely advantage Vivian. Andrea Lee can't wrestle for shit. She has a 50% takedown defense. She's getting taken down by Roxanne Matafari. She's getting taken down by, Hannah Cyphers, I want to say. She's getting taken down by Cynthia Calvillo, Lauren Murphy, JoJo Calderwood / Joanne Wood, Montana De La Rosa, Ashley Evans Smith, Veronica Macedo. God, those are not Ashley Evans Smith and Roxy. God, JoJo Calderwood took her down. Lauren Murphy out wrestled her. That's not good. These aren't wrestlers. These women can't wrestle, but they sure as hell can take down Andrea Lee. Only person to not take her down in her UFC career is Antonina Shevchenko, who is the only person worse. So all in all, she's a good striker, good volume, good cardio. Yeah, man, this is a super close fight. This is so close. Andrea, I guarantee you wins round 3. Either one are really finishers. Vivian's probably going to win round 1, and that takes us to round 2 against 2 people with decent volume. It's a coin flip. It's a pick 'em for a reason. I'll always take cardio. So give me Andrea. Am I confident in it? Absolutely not. But gun to my head, I'm taking Andrea. I like the over, but it is juiced to minus 300. So if you're looking to parlay, that's, I guess you could throw that in there. Not a ton of value, but that's the safest route. If you want to just flip a coin and guess, I'd probably lean the slightest of all leans to the Andrea Lee side. All right. Then next fight of the night, we're looking at another potential dog here in Elon Nascimento at plus 165, going up against Jake Hadley at minus 195. Over under set at 2.5, over 2.5 minus 140, under 2.5 plus 110. And this is the dun Contender Series fade. Let's start with Mr. Contender Series Jake Hadley. He is a little overrated, in my opinion. I initially thought his striking was okay as I watched a few fights over in like Cage Warriors, and he had a few regional scene fights. It looked okay, but his Contender Series fight against Mitroposo, it did not look very good. He's definitely a pressure fighter, so it looks a lot better when you're going against lower competition. When you go against someone decent, the pressure compared to actual technique, you can kind of see the difference there, and I think that's what the difference was. His jiu-jitsu is good, but mostly when he's on top. I have seen him grounded out before. Again, he's undefeated, but for periods of time, like for example, the Mitroposo fight, Mitch won the first round. He took him down and just kind of played in his guard. So Adley's predominantly one of these guys that are nasty on the ground on top, but on their back, they're not as dangerous. He's huge for the weight class, and he missed weight for that Contender Series fight. So that's another thing there. So I would definitely watch him at the weigh-ins. His wrestling looked all right. Didn't look the greatest. Again, not to be like nationalistic or anything like that, but he is British, and they're not really known for their wrestling, in all honesty. So his wrestling's not the greatest. It's just okay. So you have a jiu-jitsu guy that pressures you without really good wrestling. It's kind of awkward. And especially coming off the Contender Series, having his first fight in the UFC, if you have someone that's pretty decent and has been there before, I usually go that way. And that's what we have in Elon Nascimento. I would like a little more experience. This is kind of like the CJ Vergara, Cledson Rodriguez 2.0 version. And CJ got the win there. Do I think Cledson won? Yeah. Do I think CJ did enough to win? Yeah, I probably wouldn't have went that way, but I understand it. And I'm hoping that's what happens here with Allen at plus 165. He is okay striking. And Jake's striking isn't that good. It's basically a wash. He has really good leg kicks. He's fought the better people for sure. He fought Julian Paiva in his Contender Series fight, and Paiva's scrappy. Paiva's very, very good, and he's very, very large. He's now at bantamweight, so enough said there. He then lost the fight to Tagir Ulanbekov, and again, Tagir is like a top 10 guy in the division, and it was a split decision loss. And his loss to Julian Paiva was a split decision loss, and this loss to Yuki Moita in Risen, another good promotion, was a split decision loss. So he has a lot of split losses where his record shows 11-6, and it very well could be 14-3. It's just a very weird, he's a weird fighter. They have a 2-inch reach advantage here. His jiu-jitsu is phenomenal. So I actually think it's better than Jake Hadley's. So at worst, it's a wash. His wrestling, not very good. But I think part of that is because he's so comfortable off his back. Jake likes to be on top. Allen will be on top and also play off his back. He is a very, very active guard. He's never been finished. So Jake, someone that struggles with the weight, I'm not really certain how its cardio is, in all honesty. You can back Allen up, which isn't good because Jake likes to pressure, like I said. But Allen also trains with Charles Oliveira, so I like that a lot. I know Elon Patrick does too, but he sucks. He's 38 years old. Allen, not that old and pretty decent. All in all, I think the stand-up is a wash. I think the jiu-jitsu is a wash. I think the wrestling's a wash. And I think Jake is making his debut, and Allen has a 2-inch reach advantage. So give me Allen here. It's a dog or pass situation. All right. The next fight of the night, we're looking at Frank Camacho at plus 105, going up against Manuel Torres at minus 130. Over under set at 1.5. Over 1.5 minus 150. Under 1.5 plus 120. And we are looking at yet another Contender Series fade because of Manuel Torres. He's a weird dude. I can only find like 3 fights. One of them, he got tapped out very, very quickly. Another one was a pretty quick, just wild fight. And then the third one was the Contender Series fight where he had the controversial eye poke. He blatantly poked his opponent in the eye right in front of Herb Dean, who decided he really didn't care about that fight, and then finished the guy as he was trying to figure out how to see. So very, very controversial, very, very quick, another 2 minutes. All in all, I saw 3 fights and a total of like 4 minutes of fight tape. So I don't have a lot there going besides the fact that he was pretty wild, but he was controlled in the Contender Series fight. So I don't know if that's him growing and improving. I mean, the kid's only 27 years old. But again, he has fought absolute cans. I mean, he has fought no one of relevance. So we don't really know much about him. And I like a lot of times when people have some experience here, he has a lot of early finishes. I don't know what this one is. It says unknown. That's a little sketchy. But his jiu-jitsu looks questionable because he's been tapped out twice. Frank Camacho is a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt, and he's known for his jiu-jitsu. Wrestling, not so much. So that's a little bit of concern. Can he strike? A little bit, but he might be a little chinny. He's definitely fought the better guys. Like I said, I like the experienced guys fighting these Contender Series debuts. So Frank is definitely that. My only issue is I know he had some sort of like motorcycle accident or something like that, and he has not fought in 2 years, I want to say. Yeah. And the last fight was a quick knockout against Justin James, and he missed weight. So that's a little sketchy. He's usually pretty decent sized for the division. I know he used to fight at 170 a little bit. And I mean, he's fought guys like Beneil, Jeff Neal, Drew Dober, the Leech. He has fought a lot of great guys compared to Torres. Pretty decent volume, pretty high volume, but he also gets hit even more. He dishes out like 6 significant strikes per minute, but he gets hit with 7. So he likes to bring a wild fight, and so does Torres. Again, his chin is a little suspect, though. Justin James knocked him out. Beneil choked him out. Jeff Neal knocked him out. And you can finish him. He looks great on Instagram, but again, I haven't seen him in 2 years, so that kind of concerns me a little bit. But all in all, if you have a guy that continually gets tapped out and we have no idea about his cardio, give me the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt who has been in the UFC fighting great competitors. So at plus money. So the pick is going to be Frank. The bet's going to be Frank. I wish it was better than plus 105, and it's only getting worse. Everyone's jumping on Frank Camacho at plus money. So if you're going to do it, I'd do it while he's still plus money. It's probably going to go off as a pickup, in all honesty. All right, next fight of the night. There's 3 things here. There's 3 things guaranteed in life. Death, taxes, and Caitlin Chukagian by decision. That is what happens here. She's minus 165. Amanda Hebas at plus 145. Over under set at 2.5. Over 2.5 is minus 235. Under 2.5 at plus 180. Let's just start with Caitlin herself, the Kia Queen. She has very good striking. Is absolutely zero power, phenomenal cardio, sketchy takedown defense, 55% takedown defense career. She's definitely gotten better at wrestling, just kind of like Andrea Lee, who's working on it, just like Angela Hill, who's working on it. Caitlin is working on it. She put on a clinic against the aforementioned Antonina Shevchenko. Again, she might have the worst wrestling I've ever seen in a UFC octagon. So I don't know how much that says. But she fought someone like Cynthia Calvillo, who all she wants to do is take you down. So that's a pretty decent look. Viviana, she can wrestle a little bit. All in all, she does not hit hard. She is the girl that all she does is scream, kind of like a Serena and Venus Williams. Whenever they hit the ball and they just yell out as they hit the ball, and it makes it feel like they're hitting 10 times harder. That's what she does in MMA. And again, this is in Vegas. This is in the small cage. There's no crowd, so all you're going to hear this whole fight is Caitlin screaming her head off. So honestly, if the judges are convinced by that, which they for some reason seem to be quite a bit, that's just only to her advantage. Her kiawing isn't really going to do anything if Amanda Ribas takes her down. And don't get me wrong, Amanda Ribas has sneaky good wrestling. It's actually pretty decent. Her jiu-jitsu, very good. She took down Mackenzie Dern multiple times and played in her guard. Her striking is okay. It's getting better. It's not the greatest, but it's definitely getting better. But she's definitely someone the UFC wants to market. She's only 26 years old. They want to market her for obvious reasons. And she's a jiu-jitsu girl. So she's 28 years old. All in all, her wrestling seems to check out. Her conditioning checks out. Her jiu-jitsu checks out. Her striking improving. She always goes forward. There's just a few issues here. One, she's a little chinny. You look at her record. She is 11-2, and both losses are by knockout. Not a fan of that. Yes, it was Marina Rodriguez, and yes, it was Polyana Viana. They're both finishers, but still, you only have 2 losses, and they're both the same way. Second issue, she is a 115-pounder. This fight is at 125, and Caitlin Chookagian used to fight at 135. Size matters, and this is very, very concerning. On first glance, I looked at this and said, you know what? She's a decent wrestler. Caitlin has a 50% takedown defense. I'm going to take the plus 150 dog. And then I realized that this is not her weight class. I don't know why she's fighting at flyweight. I don't know why she's fighting a top 3 girl at flyweight. I don't know what she's doing. She's not the biggest strawweight in the world. So I don't know what's happening. I don't know about her weight cut. So, I mean, if it's really difficult, I get that. I think she's just too small at 125. But she will be the shorter girl. She's like 5'3", and Caitlin Chookagian is 5'9". So that is going to help her shoot in on legs and shoot doubles, in all honesty. So the way you play it, for some godforsaken reason, Caitlin Chookagian by decision is plus 120 right now. The way I'm going to play it, I have Hebas, and I'm going to take Hebas straight up, money line, plus 145. Caitlin Chookagian by decision. Again, death, taxes, and Chookagian by decision. Plus money at plus 120. You're guaranteed money either way. So that's the way I'm going to play it. And hopefully that line doesn't move too much to where you guys can take advantage of that as well. You basically have plus money on both sides, and you should be good to go. As long as Ribas' chin holds up. If she gets knocked out by Caitlin, she definitely has a chin issue. All right. Then next fight of the night, we only have 3 left here. We have Luis Smolka at plus 215 going up against Davey Grant minus 265. And I see this line moving. The last time I checked, Davey Grant was like minus 315. It's getting a little out of control. Over under set at 2.5. Over 2.5 plus 135. Under 2.5 at minus 165. I don't really know what to do with that. Let's just start with Smolka. He has very good jiu-jitsu. Other than that, his striking's not terrible. It's just okay. His wrestling isn't that good. Durability, I used to say, was very, very good. One of these Hawaiian gins, until he got knocked out for the first time in his very last fight against someone who notoriously does not get knockouts. So that was a little concerning. And I think part of that is the fact that he was a flyweight, had some weight issues, had some abuse issues at home. I applaud him for fixing his life, turning it around. But now he's up at 135, and I just think he's too small. He has this little ass reach. He has like 68-inch arms. I just think he's too small. It's nothing against him. He's just like I don't like Amanda up at 125. I don't like him at 135. Davey Grant is not that small. He's decent. He's a decent sized bantamweight. He is the superior striking. He hits very hard. He's fought the who's who. He's fought Adrian Yanez and Chito Vera his last 2 fights. He's fought Jonathan Martinez as a killer, Manny Bermudez. He is someone that has taken a lot of time off, but he's been fighting with some regularity here this last year. He throws a ton of spinning attacks, a shit ton of spinning attacks. And honestly, Sometimes people don't like that. I think this could work against someone like Smoka. He might put him out. Davy Grant's cardio is perfectly fine. Smoka seems okay, but he can slow down a little. Davy Grant has 60% takedown defense and is jiu-jitsu suspect. So that's a thing. Chris Holdsworth submitted Davy Grant. Damian Strazak submitted Davy Grant. Manny Bermudez submitted Davy Grant. He has been tapped out. What is this? 3 out of his 4, or what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So he has 5 losses. I'm aware of how it finished, and 3 of them are by sub. So jiu-jitsu could be a little bit of an issue. And like we said, Smoka has a black belt. So that is Smoka's path. Take him down and control him or submit him. The issue is his wrestling isn't that good. 60% Davy Grant might be enough for Luis Smoka. And on the feet, Smoka's in trouble. So this is pure wrestler versus grappler. I always take the grappler, but this is a grappler in the wrong weight class. So we could be looking at a Loopy versus Luana situation. So give me the Luana in the scenario and Davy Grant. I hate the price, but that's the only way you can go. All right, next fight of the night, co-main event. Sounds weird for one Ion Cutelaba, minus 220. Love that guy. Going up against Ryan Superman Span at plus 180. Over under set at 1.5 for this fight, appropriate. Over 1.5 plus 105. Under 1.5 minus 135. Let's start with my boy, the Hulk, Ion Cutelaba. Someone who is finally training where he should over at ATT. That is what he needed because his striking is not terrible. It's underrated. It's not good. I don't hear what I'm not saying. It's not good, but he's competent. He can hold his own. Wrestling, great. Ground game, pretty good. It's not the greatest. Competent. He can hold his own. Cardio, issue. Big issue. Until he went to American Top Team and they're able to control the beast. This guy's nickname is the Hulk. He would dress up in green paint and scream at you. Don't get me wrong. He's still going to do some weird shit at weigh-ins. I mean, the last fight, he grabbed like a collar tie and then started smiling like he's crazy. He's going to touch his opponent at weigh-in. He's going to shove him. He's going to do something. He shoves, he collar ties, he screams, he smacks. He's nuts. He's going to do something at weigh-ins. Dana White hates it. As long as he doesn't touch him, maybe he'll just paint himself again. I don't know. But all in all, he's fucking crazy. If you come to the weigh-ins full up green paint, obviously you're a little nuts. But he cut his hair, went to American Top Team, and was calm against Devin Clark. He looked good. And his cardio lasted for 3 rounds. That's not something we generally see. On the feet, he didn't throw everything at 100%, gassing himself out. He was calm, collected, out-wrestled Devin Clark, who's a pretty decent wrestler, and just did his thing. And it was very controlled and bettable Ion Cutelaba. I liked a lot what I saw with him at a decent camp. Ryan Span, I'm just not impressed with. He's this big towering guy you think would hit you once and you go out. But most of his wins are by submission. It's kind of weird. His striking's okay. He has pretty good power, but he slows down himself. He gets hit more than he dishes out. He misses weight quite often, so you have to watch this guy on the scale. He has a 60% takedown defense. All in all, there's not a ton I like about him. I like that he has a 6-inch reach advantage here. That's pretty significant, and especially with him hitting so hard. I like that he's at Fortis MMA. I like that he's well-rounded on the ground, but that's when he's on top and controlling things. Johnny Walker knocked him out. His chin could be durable, or it could be questionable. Anthony Smith rocked him and tapped him out. His chin, again, questionable. His submission off his back, not the greatest. He got knocked out in 15 seconds by Carl Roberson. Carl Roberson now fights at 185. Again, chin might be a little suspect. Trevin Giles was able to take him down and control him. He fights at 170 now. So a little concerning there. Got choked out before that at a regional scene. So again, his jiu-jitsu is fine, but he got knocked out before that in 20 seconds. So he has a lot of quick knockouts and a lot of submissions. So you can finish this guy. He's not the greatest in the world. He just hits pretty decently hard, has usually a size advantage, and that's all he tries to do. The better fighter, 110%, is Ion Cutelaba. Can he get clipped and put out? Yeah, Magomed Ankalaev did it. That's the only one. So odds are Span doesn't get the job done. So the pick is going to be Eon, and the bet is going to be Eon. I might have to put him as a lock, in all honesty, because he could try to stand and gas him out, or he could try to wrestle him and gas him out that way. And again, 60% takedown defense, and Ion's a pretty decent wrestler. And we're already at our main event. Again, give this video a like, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you follow over on Instagram, Twitter, over on TikTok. Get all the latest news, get all the official bets. Things change after weigh-ins, so make sure you're paying attention to that. But again, we have Alexander Rakic at -170 going up against Jan Blachowicz, the former champ, at +150. Over under set at 3.5. Over 3.5, -120. Under 3.5, -110. Basically a straight pick 'em. This is an odd fight. Let's start with Rakic because I hate this dude. This dude is okay striking. He has 90% takedown defense, but no one has really shot a takedown, so that number is a little skewed. He slows down in his fights, and that's another concerning thing because this is his first 5-round fight. He slows down in 3-rounders. Not gasses, but slows down. Offensive wrestling, is not the greatest. He keeps ending up on top of people, but he's not like shooting doubles and just getting them down to the ground. He's pretty good top control, but he just keeps ending up like a leg kick, and then they'll trip and he'll dive on him. He keeps ending up on top. It's very, very peculiar. Very, very slow paced and low volume. He does not throw a ton. His last few fights, he's thrown about 30 to 40 significant strikes the entire fight. That seems to be a sweet spot. So throughout 5 rounds, I would expect him to throw somewhere around like 50 to 55. That's not exactly the highest number. Don't get me wrong. When he throws, he hits hard, and he has really devastating leg kicks. But his wins are kind of weird. They're very, very odd. A split loss to Vulcan. I think Vulcan's pretty good. The fact that it went to a split, good on Rakic. I will give the devil his due. But when you look at the rest of it, I mean, Justin Ledet was one of the worst UFC fighters ever, and he went to a decision with him. Sketchy. Devin Clark is a middleweight, and he has a sus chin, and he was able to take him out, which he should. Jimmy Manua is retired and had a sus chin, and he was able to take him out, which you should. Anthony Smith, he leg kicked him, and Anthony like lost feeling in his leg. So he was just a sitting duck. And instead of continually destroying him on the feet, he kept going down to the ground with him. And that just showed low ring IQ to me. If you're someone that can't walk, why are you going down to the ground? Like, what are you doing? And then Thiago Santos, that was a weird fight. Neither man really threw anything. And that was one of them where he just kept ending up on top. It's not like he was shooting a takedown and just staying on there. There were a lot of trips and just staying on top. It was a very weird fight and very low volume. And neither man did anything. And Thiago has fought that way his last few fights where he just does nothing. And Rakic will oblige because he wants to do nothing. So another sketchy fight. So then that takes us to Jan. His win streak was awesome. Don't get me wrong. Beating the likes of Corey Anderson, Jacare Souza, Dominic Reyes, Luke Rockhold. Those are all really good wins on the way to the title. And winning it, defending it against Israel Adesanya. That was a great win there, even though, I mean, Israel is a middleweight, but still, he's one of the middleweight GOATs. So that's a good win. Glover, not so much. He did not look good in that Glover fight standing. He did not look good on the ground. He looked like he didn't want to be there. He tapped as soon as Glover put the choke in. Like, Glover didn't even fully sink it in. Someone, I think it was the Dogger Pass podcast, alluded to a possible neck injury. And it did look like anytime his neck was touched, he was grimacing a lot, like even with like little maneuvers there. So that's interesting. He got tapped out by a neck choke, and then he pulled out of this fight in Columbus due to a neck injury. So there might be something to there being a neck injury during that fight. TBD, he's 39 years old. I don't like that. His wrestling's okay, but it's not the greatest. His striking's okay. It's not the greatest. It hits kind of hard. His jiu-jitsu is generally okay, not the greatest. He is the definition of a generalist, a 39-year-old generalist. He's seen everything. He's a veteran of the sport. A lot of like just watching you like Rakic does, but then blitzing. He's interesting. I don't like this fight. I think this fight's going to be extremely boring. But at the end of the day, I think Rakic should win. I don't like him. I'm not the biggest Jan fan either. I like Jan more. But again, we bet with our mind, not our heart. But in this fight, we're not betting with either. We're betting with our pocket. So if you have someone that has sketchy wins going up against a former champ at plus money, I'm going to take the plus 150 dog or pass shot. If we're already up on the night, I'll bet Jan. Otherwise, I'd probably bet the over. That's the way I would go. Over 3.5. I can see that hitting. So I'd either bet Jan and go dog or pass, or I'd bet the over 3.5. And that's UFC Vegas 54. Again, it's not the greatest fight card, but it's a free fight card. So you can't really complain. All you can do is give the pod a listen, check out all of the official bets, and win money, baby. Let's get it.